This story involves the death of a child. I'll keep details non-graphic and focus on the investigation. Imagine your entire life reduced to 3 objects: a blanket, a cardboard box, and a place nobody's supposed to look. In February 1957, Philadelphia police find a little boy in the woods. No one can tell them who he is. No one reports him missing, and the city gives him a name that isn't a name at all: America's unknown child. But here's the twist. This case didn't end with a confession. It ended with a birth certificate. So tonight, we're reopening the file, not to chase a monster in the dark, but to answer a quieter question that hurts just as much. How does a child vanish while still alive? Welcome to Midnight Casefiles, where the unanswered don't stay buried, and the cold cases still have teeth. If you only know this story as the boy in the box, you know the headline. You don't know the trail. Let's walk it. Fox Chase, northeast Philadelphia, late winter. A wooded area of a road that people pass without thinking, and then something that makes the world tilt. A small boy, left behind, hidden in plain sight. Police do what they always do first. They try to turn a body back into a person. Photos, fingerprints, sketches, posters. His face goes everywhere, like the city is shouting, "Do you know this child?" And the answer coming back is a terrible kind of silence. Because the most alarming detail isn't the scene. It's this. No one seems to be looking for him. For years, the case becomes a magnet. Tips pour in, theories stack up. Some sound plausible, some sound like desperation wearing a trench coat. Was he connected to a local foster home? Was he a child from another state? Was he someone's secret that got too heavy to carry? Investigations chase hundreds of threads. But every thread snaps, and eventually the case turns into a ritual. New detective inherits it. They reread the file, they stare at the same photos, they ask the same questions in different decades. Who was he? And the longer that question goes unanswered, the harder the second one becomes. Who did this? Because time doesn't just erase evidence, time erases people. Witnesses move, memories rot, perpetrators die, and the case becomes a kind of civic haunting. Here's what most people miss about cold cases. They don't stay alive on hope. They stay alive on stubborn systems. Retired investigators, cold case groups, forensic specialists. People who can't let go of one small file in a room full of tragedies. And in the modern era, one tool starts changing the rules. DNA. Not the TV version. Not the run it through a machine and the killer's name prints out version. The real version is slower, harder. Sometimes you don't even have the DNA you need. Sometimes you have to go back and take another chance. Decades after the discovery, investigators return to the remains with new technology. This part matters, so listen closely. They're not just looking for a match in a criminal database, they're building a family tree from genetic breadcrumbs. One distant relative, one upload, one connection that finally holds. And suddenly, the case stops being a boy, it becomes a specific child born on a specific date who existed on paper even if he never got to exist safely in the world. In December 2022, Philadelphia police announced the identity the city have waited generations to hear. Joseph Augustus Zarelli, 4 years old. A name that should have been called at school, a name that should have been on birthday cards, a name that should have been shouted across a playground. Instead, it's read at a podium. And with that, one chapter closes and the crueler chapter opens. Okay, now we know who he was. So, what happened to him? At the press conference, police make something very clear. This is not over. This is not solved. They say they have suspicions, but they don't name anyone. They say the investigation is active and they ask the public for help. Because identification gives you a starting point, not a finish line. A name tells you where to dig. It doesn't tell you what you'll find when you hit bone. And now the case has a new shape. Neighbours, addresses, family links. People who may have known Joseph existed, even if they didn't understand what they were seeing. This is where cold cases either break open or go quiet again. Because the next clue isn't always forensic. Sometimes it's human. A memory somebody avoided for 60 years, a conversation someone wrote off as not my business, a house on a street where the curtains were always drawn. In January 2023, Joseph's grave is updated with his name. That detail hits me harder than it should, because it's so simple. A headstone isn't justice, but it's dignity. It's the world admitting you were real. You belong to the living, and if you've ever wondered why investigators chase identifications so relentlessly, even without an arrest, this is why. Because unknown is a second burial. Now I'm going to be careful here. There's a temptation online to treat this like a puzzle box, to name suspects, to point fingers, to turn tragedy into a scoreboard. But Joseph wasn't a storyline. He was a child. What we can say is this: someone, somewhere, knew him. He didn't appear out of the fog fully formed. He lived to 4 years old. That means he existed in a community, in a routine, in somebody's orbit. And if there's any chance this case ever reaches a true ending, it won't be because a stranger on the internet solved it. It'll be because someone who was there finally tells the truth. For 65 years, people asked, who is the boy in the box? Now we can finally say his name. Joseph Augustus Zarelli. But a name is not the same thing as an answer. So if you're watching this and you're from that time, that neighbourhood, that world, or you heard stories that never sat right, this is the moment that matters. Because the case isn't just about who did it. It's about how a child can disappear in a city full of people and how long it takes for the world to notice. If you want more cases where the truth shows up late, but it still shows up, subscribe to Midnight Casefiles. And in the comments, tell me this: do you think the name will lead to justice or just a clearer mystery? Good night.